Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea Castillo. I'm the Teen Services Coordinator for Alexandria Library based out of the Beatley Central Library. We're happy to be hosting tonight with the Princeton Review, Crafting Your College Application Essays. We're joined by Nacy Veach, who's done lots of awesome programs for us before, and I'm sure tonight will be no exception. So Nacy, take it away.
Hey folks, welcome. And as Andrea said, thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Nacy Veach and I am the outreach specialist for the Princeton Review. I did see some familiar faces on the list this evening, so sorry for the repeat introduction if you already know who I am. But for those of you who do not, I work with local libraries, local schools in the DMV, and I am happy to share with you some exciting information about your college application essay. So whether you're a parent who is here for representing your child, or if you're a student and you're just looking to get more information, I am hoping that by the end of this session, you have walked away with everything you need. I'll go over the agenda in just a minute, but we will also have time for a bit of Q&A at the end. So if you have any burning questions, please feel free to pop those in the chat for me as we go throughout the presentation, or you could just wait till the end for the Q&A session. Okay, so I want to share a little secret about college admissions with you. When looking at college applications, admissions officers have no problem judging between a valedictorian who has a 1580 and a 650 SAT score with a sub
college writing
2.5 GPA. They're also always going to prefer the student who has led many different clubs to those who have never wanted to join anything during high school. Admissions committees are also always going to favor students with glowing letters of recommendation over the students whose teachers have noted that they turned all of their homework in on time. So these are clear differences between applicants. Now, broad distinctions are not what admission committees spend time agonizing over. They really face choosing between students who have similar GPAs and similar SAT, ACT scores, or they have problems deciding between the soccer captain versus the debate champion, the excellent literature student against the outstanding math student, blah, blah, you get my point here. The good news for application readers and you as an applicant is that there is one part of the application that can help a student stand out, and that, my friends, is going to be your college application essay. Okay, so today on our agenda, we will discuss how you can make sure that your college application essays will make you stand out in the college admissions process. This presentation is also heavily based on a book that the Princeton Review has released. It's called The Complete Guide to College Application Essays. We made this book based on years of working with students and extensive discussions with college admissions officers. Of course, we're not going to have time to cover everything that's in the book today, but my personal goal is by the end of the day to give you some of the key points from the book. So in this presentation, here are the things that I want to cover. So first, I want to talk about why you must write an essay as part of your college application. And then secondly, I want to talk about what needs to be in that essay. And then finally, I want to talk about the steps that you need to take when you're writing your application. Now, the goal is that when we're done today, you will know how to craft an essay that will make your application stand out. Okay, now my information is on the screen. I just popped it on there. So if you need to take down my email, please feel free to do so. I will include that on the last page again at the end. So if you need to reach out to me outside of the presentation today, you'll have the opportunity to do so. I will also, we have a question in the chat about slides. I will also send you a copy of my slide deck for the evening, as well as a copy of the recording of our presentation in case you missed part of it, or if you'd like to review it again.
Thank you.
Sure, no problem. Okay, so before we get to your essay or your student's essay and what you're going to write or they're going to write, we're going to take a step back. In order to write the best possible essay that you can for your application, you have to know why you are writing the essay. So college admissions offices want to see an essay in your application for a reason. Now, this is not just a writing sample, but really it's just you presenting something for the readers that has a specific function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you break down what the purpose of your application essay is and what that's going to mean for you. So above all, the purpose of your application essay is to show the admissions committee what makes you different from other applicants. This is a relatively simple idea, right? But I cannot emphasize enough the importance. More than your high school GPA, more than your high school classes, more than your SAT or ACT scores, or even your extracurricular activities or letters of recommendation, your application essay is the one thing that's truly going to make your application different from any other student. So showcasing what makes you different from other applicants is not really as simple as just picking the right topic or finishing the assignment. Though this is one spot in the application where you get to speak directly to the admissions committee. And here you can ensure that the admissions committee at any school you apply to knows your story. And do not forget, you have your own story, a story that's different from any other students and from any other applicants. No matter what your background or your intended major is, no one has a story quite like yours, and admissions officers want to know you as a person and if you're going to be a good fit for their college. And that is honestly and truly, I can say, the main purpose of your college application essay. Okay, so the burning question, why else do colleges want essays in their applications? Why, you ask? Well, there are several reasons, actually. It's important to note here that not every school is going to require that you write an essay. For example, there are a few universities and colleges, Siena College, Indiana, Wesleyan University, and any of the entire California State University college system, colleges do not require essays. These schools believe that they can determine who should be admitted based on things like your transcripts or your test scores. You know, even though most schools require at least one general personal statement, you're going to find that many schools actually want to see multiple essays on different topics. So again, colleges want to see at least one essay because an essay answers some some specific questions that nothing else in your application really can. So that brings me to the first and most important reason. Can you do the required level of work for this college? I mean, sure, your transcript's going to show how you've done in school, and test scores show some type of academic ability in some way, but an essay is going to show academic skills as well. This is not only a testament to your writing ability, but it's also your general communication skills and your knowledge of basic English grammar and mechanics. So I want you to think of it essentially as a check-in of your transcript and your test scores. It's living proof to them that you can write something that's worthwhile in front of the admissions committee. Okay, secondly, an essay does more than just show what kind of student you are. It also answers the question, are you a good fit for the college? Now, I mentioned best fit earlier, right? I alluded to that point, but admissions officers really want students who are going to fit in at their school. They want to read a story in your voice about who you are as a person, so they'll know exactly what you'll like and how you're going to fit in on campus. Excuse me. And then the final question is kind of a selfish but necessary question for admission offices. And that question is, are you likely to contribute to the school? So application readers are not just trying to find students who would be happy on their campus, but they want students who are going to actively contribute and to improve their campus environment. And so now let's take a second to consider who actually sits on an admissions committee. An admissions committee will most likely be made up of different kinds of people at different schools. Sometimes you're going to see professors sitting on an admissions committee. Sometimes it's going to be administrators playing a significant role. And sometimes it may be students even who are sitting on an admissions committee. But the bulk of admissions committees, I've said those words a lot, are made up of admissions officers. So these are people who work full-time and to recruit and admit next year's freshman class and incoming transfer students. Admissions officers are the same folks who attend college fairs, they host information sessions, and sometimes they even conduct interviews. And you'll find that some of these admissions officers have also spent years working in admissions, while others came into it after other careers in academia. Now, sometimes even admissions officers are recent graduates of the schools where they work, which is going to help provide a special type of insight to the admissions process for the school. So another point that I want to convey here also is that wherever you apply to college or wherever your child applies to college, a few things are absolutely going to be true about the committee at that school. And the first of those is that admissions committee is going to be sympathetic to students. And what I mean by this is that they want to see you in your best light and they want to understand what it is that you're saying. Secondly, every admissions committee is also respectful of students and the colleges where they work. Admissions officers in particular are looking to make sure that they uphold their school's goals while they're also ensuring that students' needs are understood. And that is because above all, every admissions committee wants students to succeed. There's even some institutional self-interest, if you will, in this because a successfully enrolled student is going to help the school. But at its core, this fact means that admissions committees are looking to admit students rather than to reject them. Any application reader is tasked with the job of finding the reasons why you should be admitted to their school. Just as a reminder, if you have questions, please feel free to pop those into the chat. I'm happy to answer them as they come along. But now I want to take a bit of time to get down to what you might actually want to write about. Right now, I am going to focus my time on the Common Application Personal Statement. So if you aren't familiar, the Common Application, also known as the Common App, is used by roughly or slightly over 900 schools to give you the chance to fill out just one, excuse me, I'm so sorry, to fill out just one application, including one personal statement, and then that gets sent to multiple colleges. The Common App clearly wants to give you the ability to write about anything that you think you should write about. They have 7 separate prompts, and then the final one literally says that you can write on any topic of your choice. It is your job to select the prompt that most inspires you to share your story. You want to break it down into questions posed in the prompt and write an essay that is engaging and personal while responding to these given questions. The key here is to remember that this is your personal statement, yours or your child's, right? There are 7 different prompts listed there, but again, you get to make the choice of which is going to help to tell your story. So if you don't already have an idea, then you're going to spend some time thinking about the prompts. Find the one that speaks to you or the one that you feel most inspired to write about. Inspiration is honestly the most important thing because that is part of the application that you have complete control over. Everything else is simply just fill in the blank type data. And this is really your chance not only to share your compelling story, but to also tell it so compellingly that your reader can almost see and hear your voice. So just keep this in mind before you start writing. What you write about on your college application essay is completely up to you with very few limits, but your topic has to be about you. You need to show your application readers what sets you apart or makes you unique from other applicants. So if the topic of your essay is about you, then maybe what is in your essay is going to seem obvious on the surface. But in reality, it's not quite that easy, because writing about yourself can honestly be a very difficult task. You've been told your entire school career not to write using I statements, but one of the most important essays you will ever write, which is your college application essay, is going to require mostly I statements. And this is just one of the reasons why you really have to put some time and preparation into how it is written. So I want to take a look at the overall structure of your college application essay. Now, I am pretty confident that that at some point in your high school career or in elementary or middle school that you've seen this structure. So there's not going to be anything too mind-blowing here. But first, you're going to begin with an overview. It's super important to have a strong overview in your college application essay. You need to start by summarizing what you want an application reader to take away from your essay. So your overview puts your essay in broad strokes, or it really just shows the big picture. So if you know what will make you different from other applicants, then you're going to state that in your overview. Make sure that that's the key takeaway that an application reader has after they read your essay. Now, no surprises here. After you've wowed them with an overview, you're going to need to work through the body of your essay. Now, the body of the essay needs to build on from your overview. So if you talk about multiple points in your essay, they're all going to need to refer to and strengthen the overview that you've written. Honestly, you can even pick the classic 5-paragraph structure overview that has 3 main points that we all know so well. And you don't need to be as rigid as you would in an academic essay, but you will have point-by-point understanding of what you need to say. And then lastly comes your conclusion. So your conclusion isn't just a rehashing of everything that you've already said, but it should also reflect back to everything that you previously said. It will essentially be a restatement of your overview, but it's going to have extra emphasis to make sure that the application reader cannot miss the main takeaway that you want them to have. Okay, overused essay topics. Now, I really want to take a minute here to address this because we get questions every single day at the Princeton Review about essay topics. Do I have a good topic? Is this unique enough to wow the readers? Well, the truth here is that especially full-time admissions officers, they're going to be reading lots and lots of essays. So what that means is that you should very carefully choose exactly what you want to write about. I can guarantee that if you write about a certain topic, your application reader is going to be thinking, oh no, not another one of these. You want to avoid that at all costs. So as you're about to see on the screen, here are some examples of overused essay topics. The first one, I scored the winning points, touchdown, basket, home run, goal. Next, my fight against a disease, talking about fundraising for a cure for cancer, for example. I moved to the United States when I was 6 and didn't speak English. Another overused essay topic, I went to a foreign country on a community service trip. Now, I mean, you guys can read the screen, right? But it's hard to get good grades, but I'm an A student, or a person in my family means everything to me. So you might look at these types of topics and think, oh, those would be great topics for an application essay. Or you might even think, uh-oh, that's what I was going to write about. So look at these topics more closely. In addition to being common, they're essentially just statements of fact. There's very little space to add thoughts, feelings, or reflections to any of these topics. And since these are such common essay topics, you can also bet that your application reader will probably read a very, very similar essay, maybe even on the same day that they read yours. So I am basically saying all of this just to reiterate the point that if you don't already have that winning topic, you'll need to start looking for one that's going to be completely different from any that your application reader has ever seen. Now, as you're applying to college, I am sure you will receive plenty of advice, maybe even some unsolicited advice that you should or should not always accept. Here are some common pieces of advice that you shouldn't always listen to. And the first is, you can't write about how you had trouble in middle school, for example. Yes, you can. In fact, many good essays feature some type of struggle or growth. You're not really trying to show yourself as a perfect person, but more so as a real human being. But I do want you to keep in mind that if you do talk about how you had struggles, you should also highlight some sign of growth. Make the reader's takeaway, I overcame trouble in middle school, rather than I had trouble in middle school, if that makes sense. Second, why didn't you say anything about your chemistry medal? Okay, prize, award, something that you've achieved. Well, because it has nothing to do with the story. Remember, this is not a list of achievements. This is a personal statement. That important information about a chemistry medal or your soccer championship or even your Fortnite rankings can be listed somewhere else in your application. Do not repeat it here unless it is directly tied in some way to your personal statement. That's too personal. You can't write about that. Yes, you can. Yes, you should. The more specific and personal your essay is, the better it is going to be. This is a personal statement. It says it right in the words. This is also going to speak, though, to a different concern that students also have, that you might have crossed the line or exposed too much of yourself. So you'll know when you're uncomfortable with sharing something. The best advice I can give you is just to trust yourself. Next piece of advice, you can't use humor. You can use humor. You just have to be very careful. Check with different readers to make sure that your joke is actually funny and that it's recognizable in the context of the essay as a joke. And there is one absolute rule when you are never allowed to use humor. And that is, if any of your readers say that your joke could be considered in any way bigoted or offensive, you have to get rid of it. And then lastly, you can't talk about that. Politics, for example. You'll usually hear this when referring to religion and politics, but it also comes up when dealing with addiction or mental illness topics. And somehow these topics are always off limits. So you can discuss these topics, but I want you to make sure that you are treading carefully. If you are talking about your experience volunteering for a political campaign or working for Habitat for Humanity, then that's great. Perfectly acceptable. However, this is not the place for your political manifesto, but it's rather a place to show why and how these topics such as politics matter to you. I'm sorry, we did have one more point here. Formal essays are supposed to be in third person, not this one. It is a personal essay, and it is awfully hard to get yourself in there as a person without the use of the words I or me. And making sure that I or me is in a college application essay is the most important aspect. So all the advice that I'm giving you here, folks, is my way of just saying, write for your audience, not for yourself. You're going to find it very difficult to demonstrate who you are if you take advice that pulls you away from writing about yourself. We have a couple questions in the chat. I'm just going to go ahead and take those now. Thank you, Karen. Is there a certain length that is appropriate for a personal statement and or essay? And do you have information regarding essay coaches? Yes, I have all of this information in a handout, and I will send this to you after our presentation so that you have all of that information.
Thank you again.
Yes, no problem. All right, formal versus informal tone. So I want you to consider another basic approach when we are talking about writing your college application essay. One major difference between college application essays and high school essays is that you have much more freedom to use an informal tone instead of a formal tone. Okay, and by that I mean for your college application essay, a formal tone should include varied sentence structure, varied diction, and using an active voice. And now overall, you need to be slightly more informal in your application essays, but you still need to do it smartly. Okay, this is what I mean by that. Take personal pronouns, for example. As I've mentioned a couple times already tonight, you've been told your whole life not to use I in an essay. You can use I in your personal statement. Remember, it's a personal statement. Okay, look at the differences in these sentences. Formal version, the student sat at the desk thinking long and hard about what to write. Versus informal, I sat there swiveling in my chair trying to come up with the right words. Okay, here's another example. Teachers also shun contradictions because they make papers conversational, right? So instead of carefully researched papers, but your college application essay is in many ways a conversation between you and the reader. So contractions sound more like the way you actually talk. So I want to show you two sentences here so that you can see the difference. Formal, it is very difficult to write well when you are tired, so do not stay up all night. Versus the informal tone, it's very difficult to write well when you're tired, so don't pull an all-nighter. Okay, and finally, there's something that you would never use in a formal essay, but which could be effective in an application essay, and that is sentence fragments. Use them the same way that fiction writers do, to change the rhythm of the sentence or shake up the structure of a list. Look at these two sentences. So first, formal. Reasons to avoid a trip to Nepal include the weather, the risk of avalanches, and the overpriced guides. So rather than the formal tone, let's take a look at informal tone. There were many reasons to avoid a trip to Nepal. Weather, avalanches, guides, there are some good ones, but they're overpriced. My point here is that you should be careful with how you use informal tone, but an informal tone is what's really going to make your essay personal. Do not think that you have to stick to the way that you have always written academic essays. Okay, and this brings us to our last section, which is writing your application essays. Writing your college application essays is going to be tough, but it's also pretty exciting, right? You get to write about yourself on a topic of your choosing to show colleges that you're a great candidate for admission. You can write whatever your heart desires, but you also must know the best way to show what your heart desires to admissions committees. And we will end today with some very basic tips for writing your application essays. Deadlines, deadlines, deadlines. There is one thing that you must know about deadlines for college applications. They are hard, fast, and unforgiving. College admissions offices not only have application deadlines built, but they build them into their entire school year. And there are rarely any extensions in these college application due dates. And it's never because the student is just running late. So we're going to start with know all your application deadlines. The first thing you have to know before you begin your essay is when things are due. Before you start writing your essay, make a spreadsheet with all the deadlines for all of your different applications. Be especially aware of any early deadlines because the earliest deadline is going to be when your first essay has to be finished. And you need to start well before your deadlines. So when students work with us through our college admissions counseling department, we generally recommend that students get a rough draft done at least 4 solid weeks prior to the due date, with a revised draft 3 weeks before the due date. So that what that's going to do is it's going to give you time to have someone review and edit your draft. And it's also going to help to let an essay sit in quotation marks for a little while to give you a bit of removal from your writing and a better sense of how well the essay actually reads. And then number 3, you need time to edit your essay. We tell students to get the final draft completed no later than 10 days prior to the actual due date. You can get a chance to make one final pass for a very careful edit and give yourself the chance to submit your essay in a relaxed manner rather than having to rush through it. Okay, so let's talk about starting your essay. Even if you know exactly what you want to talk about, beginning your essay will likely still be tough. Writing about yourself is sometimes awkward, and there isn't an easy template for you to follow, but there are some concrete steps that you can take when you start your essay. Okay, so first start with what we call a free write. No matter how much planning you do, eventually you have to just start writing. Set a timer for yourself between 5 and 20 minutes. Start at the lower end when you first do it, and then just start writing. Write whatever is on your mind and whatever you are feeling. Don't hold back. This is really what is going to get you used to writing about yourself. And only you are going to be the person to see what you do in a free write. So you don't have to worry about outside judgment here. And this is also going to provide you with a lot of raw material. You also need to establish your thesis. You should be used to writing a thesis for any essay that you've done in high school. The thesis in your college application essays will be somewhat different though than your high school pieces. And this thesis will be a little less straightforward, but you still have a statement of what you're saying. So remember back when we talked about your overview. Yep, that is going to be the takeaway that you want your application reader to have. That's going to be your thesis. And then lastly, you should also outline your college application essays. So much like other essays, personal statements use body paragraphs to develop and support the thesis. You cannot wing it on an application essay once you have a topic and a thesis. You have to plan. Now, outlining your body paragraphs will allow you to think about the points you're making ahead of time. You can also see how your points connect to each other in your outline before you have full paragraphs. I should also mention here that every student is different and you might not take these exact steps in order. If you know exactly what you want to say and you can establish a thesis first, then that can clarify your free write. You might even craft an outline first and then struggle writing in a way that you like to write. So just take a breather, turn to a free write and see if something good comes. Just remember, you will not be able to just sit down and write a strong college application essay without any effort. Okay, so you are likely to start writing and you may find yourself at a loss. It happens. I will bet that your first attempt at writing an introduction leaves you with something plain. Oh, excuse me, guys, sorry. Someone set off fireworks outside of my house. So I bet your first attempt at writing an introduction is going to leave you with something boring or unengaging, and that's how everyone is going to write at first. And your college application essay is going to have a hook that draws the readers into your essay. The good news here is that you can always go from a blah essay to an engaging essay with just small shifts in your tone. Now, here are some examples. Okay, so here is a blah sentence. In this essay, I intend to show how important my work at Habitat for Humanity has been for my personal growth. This is the way you would start an analytical essay for high school, though. It will never work for a personal essay. I don't care what you intend to show. I want to know what you're going to show. Okay, here is another example of a blah. Last summer, I worked at the New York Aquarium and I learned a lot. This opening is factual and it lays out what the essay will be about, but it doesn't really do much more. I would imagine someone working at the New York Aquarium would learn a lot, and this isn't helping me imagine what it's like to work there. And then the last blah sentence, I have always loved to read and my books have done a lot to make me who I am today. This is a very common thing to say, and I don't really have any extra sense of why books are important to this student as compared to others. And so even though all of these openings are blah, they can totally be flipped around into an engaging hook. Now, this doesn't take throwing out existing essays or even the sentiment of those sentences. It can just take using some tools that a creative writer can use to flip them around. Now, my point here is not to read everything that you see on the screen, but there are some examples of how we have taken these blah sentences and we have flipped them around to engaging sentences. So I'm going to give just a quick moment for you to read the screen so that you can see how we use a hook to grab the reader's attention. All right, moving forward. If there are any questions in the chat, please feel free to pop those in now. If not, I'll just keep chugging right through. All right, so let's talk about editing. One of the most important elements of writing your application essay is going to be editing it. Editing is more than simply reading your essay again and again, trying to find grammatical errors. Your college application essay does need to have proper grammar and mechanics, but it should also be a distillation of what makes you stand out from other applicants in an engaging manner. You will need to have an editing process, and here are some basic tips for the entire editing process. So first, you're going to need someone else to edit your essay at some point, and that's always better when it's a strong writer. One pair of eyes on any piece of writing is just not going to do. You need someone else to honestly evaluate your writing, and this can be a friend, it can be a teacher, a counselor, a parent, or even a professional essay reviewer. But the key here is that it's someone else who can provide grammar checks, overall evaluations, and a general sense of what is going to be required for your application essays. Next, know that you are going to be editing your essay multiple times. As unfortunate as it is, you will not have one stage, which is editing, and then you go over your essay one time. You have to go into edit mode multiple times at different stages of your writing, and you will edit your first draft before you're writing more for your second draft. You're going to edit your second draft before you're writing more on your third draft, so on and so forth. And then finally, your goal here in editing should always be to make sure your writing is clear and direct. Editing isn't just chopping down your word count. Editing is making your writing better, and your guideposts should always be clarity and directness. As an added bonus, if you're being clear and direct, you generally will lower your word count because we're looking for somewhere around 500 words. All right, so let's talk about the little things that you can do or look for that always make writing unclear. If you hear these and think, oh no, I do that, then all I have to say is, of course you do. These are writing problems that even professional writers have. And so for your college application essays, you need to make sure you are clearly conveying your overall takeaway to your reader. You need to avoid redundancies, which is not just saying the same thing again, but more so saying the same thing in a different way. Try to mix things up to show your range, and be especially wary of repetition when you're writing your conclusion. You also want to reduce your wordiness. Now, we all want to sound smart, and we think that using more words sometimes makes us sound smart. And usually it doesn't do that, it just makes it confusing. So eliminate as much of this fluff as possible from your essay. Next, you can also make sure that you're focusing on the right word choice, not just how many words you are using. And there's a difference between use and utilize, for example, or there's a difference between the words think and realize. So choosing the correct word is going to help make your writing stronger. Now, modifiers. You also need to make sure that you use modifiers correctly. Misplaced modifiers, such as writing Turning various shades of orange and yellow, the man admired the fall foliage. Can be pretty laughable, right? Because the subject of the sentence isn't turning colors, the foliage is, right? But make sure that you're clearly describing what you mean. Now, you also need to always watch out when using pronouns. We have talked about pronouns a lot tonight. If you're writing about three women talking and you keep saying, she did this, but she did that, your reader is going to have a tough time knowing or understanding who's doing what. So you want to make sure that it is clear who a pronoun refers to when you're using one. And then lastly, you need to be careful of your overall sentence structure. Now, especially when you've gone through tons of changes and edits, some parts of sentences get left standing apart from where they were first written. You can be left with, odd fragments or run-ons that you're not going to catch because you're so familiar with your own writing. Now, if you want to know the best way to find where you have unclear writing, read your essay out loud. Even better, read your essay out loud to a friend or your parents, or have them read theirs to you. You're likely going to catch each other's confusing writing because you're less in the weeds when you're looking at someone else's writing. Now, finally, you should have someone else look over your essay. It can be a friend, a teacher, a counselor, a parent. It could even be a professional essay reviewer. So whoever reads your essay, you're going to get answers to certain questions. And these are the questions. What is the main idea of the essay? Secondly, did it answer the question? Next, did the introduction catch your attention? Did the conclusion wrap up your essay? Is the essay technically perfect? So these are not the only questions that an editor can answer for you, and an editor won't necessarily answer all of these at once. However, these are things that you may struggle to answer as the author of a personal essay. It is just very hard to answer all of these when you've been buried in your own essay, reflecting on what you want to say and reviewing how you have said everything again and again. Another reason to do this is because it will allow you to see your essay from an outsider's perspective. You'll also then be able to view your own essay in a new light, and that is truly the only way that you're going to get the feedback that will help to improve your essay. All right, so wrapping up here, I want you to think back to the beginning of our presentation and what application readers have to sort through. They're looking for best students for their colleges by evaluating grades, transcripts, test scores, extracurriculars, summer activities, even just so much else. Deciding on these factors is going to be extremely difficult, and very few of them actually reveal the person who's applying to that college. But the good news is for you, is that you can cut through all of that and speak directly to them through your college application essay. And that is why these essays are so crucial. Remember what we discussed, our first big idea. We talked about the purpose of your college application essays, and the purpose is to show what makes you different from other candidates. Colleges are also going to want to see that you can write, but also that you can fit into their campus environment. Okay, and then the second thing that we talked about was what goes into your essay. So you're going to need to follow a basic structure that allows you to discuss yourself and write a different kind of essay than you ever have written before. And you may even need to use the tools of a creative writer. And then finally, we talked about writing your essays. And once you begin the right way with a free write or an outline or a thesis, you can revise your essay in ways that make it engaging. And always remember that editing is a key part of writing any essay. And so with all of that, now my hope for you is that you can go and craft an amazing college application essay that's going to make your application stand out in the college admissions process. And with that, we still have about 13 minutes, and I am more than happy to take any questions that you may have as it's related to college application essays, general college admissions, or even if you have questions about SAT or ACT prep. I'm going to go back to the questions and just make sure that I have answered everything. Karen, I don't know that I answered your question earlier about the length of an essay, and that is around 500 words.
You did. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Perfect. I couldn't remember if I answered it. I think I took both of your questions at the same time. So if anyone else has questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat. Today is, let's see, today is Wednesday evening. On Friday of this week, I am going to send you a follow-up email. And in that follow-up email, I am going to include for you some really important and helpful articles that we have on our Princeton Review website. And I'm also going to provide tons of other resources for college admissions, essays and counseling. And then if you do have any specific questions at that point, I would be happy to spend some time to chat with you on the phone or answer any questions that you have by email. Okay, my email address is on the screen, and I am here always to help you out if you have any questions. So feel free to email and stay in touch with me anytime. But if you do have questions, again, I'm going to take those now. You can unmute yourself, or you can just pop them in the chat.
So this is Karen again. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm the only one asking. So in your Friday email, will you also have essay coaches?
We do, yes, and I can provide you some links to that, to the
Thank
college admissions counseling department. Absolutely. Yeah, one of the very cool things that we offer is an essay review, and that's just if you already have an essay draft written and you're not sure if it's good or if it needs to be changed, you can just submit it and get written feedback on it. But there are tons of other things that we offer as well. All right, let me see. I believe. Nope, we just have a thank you in the chat. All right, I'm going to stick around for a couple minutes in case any of you have questions, but I will go ahead and dismiss everyone. And if you are in doubt and need some help, just reach out. Thanks so much.
Yes, and I want to say thank you to Nacy. And I put in the chat a link to our teen page at the library. You can see other teen programs like this one there. A big thank you to Nacy, and you can see other books, resources, and other things, databases, other test prep materials that we have. So all the best on your applications, and thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Have a great evening, guys.